Good morning. On now?
No.
On now? How's that? Better?
There.
Yes, okay, thank you. Good, welcome, good morning. My name is Charlie, and I welcome you to Unity of the Seacoast for Sunday, September 11th, 2022. And we thank you to Kevin Reams, who's joining us this morning as a musician. Magnificent flute work always opens my heart up, brings me joy. And I welcome you if you are new to Unity of the Seacoast services. Thank you for joining us physically way out there in internet land. Anyone who's here, I invite you to please make sure your phones are silenced, and mine's in the other room. It's safer that way. We'll begin this morning with today's daily word, a gift that Unity International, your Unity, gives to the world for many, many years. And today's word is remembrance. The phrase is, "You live in my heart." Whether they have passed on recently or many years ago, the people for whom I have cared deeply are alive in my heart. If I feel sad or lonely, or for those I miss, I pause to recall a special memory or something unique about them that made even ordinary days feel magical. Reflecting on the love and joy we shared and the blessings their lives afforded me, I feel comforted. I'm thankful that these memories will always be mine to treasure. I know that life does not end with death. Life is eternal, and my loved ones will always be beautiful, beloved expressions of spirit. I'm grateful those who have passed from this life experience continue to live in spirit and are forever in my heart. And from Psalm 112, verse 6, "For the righteous will never be moved, they will be remembered forever." And here at Unity of the Seacoast, we have a mission in the world. And there it is. We're happy. If you will please join me. We are a loving, nurturing community dedicated to being a positive path to spiritual living, to awaken oneness with God within us all. So let's see, we have a nice crowd here, and hopefully we have a nice crowd out there. I've been a member of Unity of the Seacoast off and on when we live in this part of the country for several decades, and we are delighted to be once again able to have physical gatherings here. Over the last year and a half or two, we were virtual for a while. And a great advantage to being physically live here is we have a prayer chaplain available to meet with congregants after the service. And we also have fellowship after the service with spectacular food offerings. So if you're able to join us here, we can fill you up spiritually and then physically. If you would care to please visit our website, you can see the weekly announcements of what's going on, sometimes even far into the future. And all of our past talks are archived there. And we also, on that website, have a donate button. If you are fed spiritually and would like to join us in engaging with our community to bring everyone to that pathway to their oneness with God, then please. The format that we use is Tithely, and they seem to be quite simple, easy, and safe to work with. If you would care to send a check rather than do it on the internet, then we are at the McConnell Center in Dover. We are Unity of the Seacoast, Suite 246 at 61 Locust Street in beautiful Dover, New Hampshire, 03820. On the first Monday of every month, we have an online meditation on our Facebook Live. Please feel free to join us there. I believe if you go to our Facebook page, you can also find past meditations. It's an opportunity to recenter, reflect, and a wide variety of topics, but everything is designed to bring us back to spirit. We also are broadcasting live Facebook and YouTube. And our YouTube channel, if you just type in Unity of the Seacoast, you can work your way to past things and also today's service if you prefer that. We have coming up on October 2nd, our very own Bev Raymond will be our special guest speaker. She is on the path to Unity Ministry, and she's also the chairman of the board, where you won't confuse her with Frank Sinatra if you see her. On Saturday, October 8th, we'll be participating in a 5K run walk at the McClellan School in Rochester, and that's to raise money for the Rochester Child Care. It's dear to our hearts. Our lovely Rachel and Michael, their children, Mariah and Avery, attend, and we like to support them. They've gotten great benefits from the program. We participated last year and we had a blast. The registration fee is $25, and for more information, you can, if you're out there, you can contact us, or probably if you Google Rochester Child Care 5K, something like that, or you can talk to Rachel, Lynn, or Tom locally. October 28th, we're planning an outdoor service at Henry Law Park at the Concert Shell. We have a practice that we see in pretty much every Unity church I've attended, and it's called Namaste. Namaste is a Sanskrit, and my interpretation is the light in me sees and honors the light in you, and we bow slightly and say Namaste while looking into someone's eyes. Namaste. If you have someone at home, great, and if you don't, I'll join you. Namaste. We will have fellowship immediately after the service today, which will include, as I mentioned, food. And today we're having a special feature, which is we will be watching a movie called, is it called The Rescue?
13 Lives.
13.
13 Lives.
Lives.
Whatever they said, I can't understand. I've got new hardware in my ears, and it's not as much fun as life used to be. Anyway, there's a great movie. It's about the rescue of the Thai soccer team, was it? The Thai soccer team that got caught in the caves a few years ago, and the international effort to rescue them from the caves, which brought the world together. So, and now I would like to invite Kevin back up for another tune. Thank you again, Kevin. Spectacularly. We're on good. All right. So next up is the main event. And I would like to introduce you to Mr. Tom Scheinler, who always gives us a great talk, inspiring, and a different perspective on things I didn't think about. So thank you. Welcome, Tom.
Charlie, thank you so much. Kevin, thank you. That really kind of fits with the talk, with the Thailand theme and everything. That's just, every time I hear you play, I'm just moved. I'm humbled. A few years ago, we saw this story play out of the boys' soccer team that was trapped in the underground caves. And I didn't know a lot about it. And then recently, over the past 4 months, I just started looking at it for whatever reason. And I was amazed by all the unique gifts of people that came into play to make this happen. So that is what this talk is going to be focused on today. Before I begin the talk, I want to acknowledge a couple things. Rachel, I want to acknowledge your birthday. Happy birthday to you. You are so important to me and to the church, and I'm humbled by all that you do. I want to acknowledge the passing of the Queen. It was quite really remarkable, her reign, the longest ever. What she accomplished, what she did 21 years ago with having the Royal Band play the Star Spangled Banner in acknowledge of 9/11. I want to acknowledge everyone who was lost and everyone who suffered through 9/11. The emotions of the country and the world. I did a pretty in-depth talk about that last year, so I shied away from it a little bit because it took a lot out of me emotionally. And because we got a new king, God save the king. We'll see how this goes. I'm also going to start by doing a prayer for everyone else because I didn't want to end this talk on that. So for those at home, if there's anyone that you're praying for, I encourage you to type their name into the comment box. If not their name, their initials, or just a heart emoji. For everyone here, think of someone that you love, that you care about, that you're thinking of. Someone who is fighting a battle. You may know or you may not know of the battle. People appear strong when they're weak. People who appear weak when they're actually being very strong. But we hold them in our hearts. We see them whole and healthy. We affirm this in this. We see them in their highest nature, their best self, their perfect self. Frank, if you're watching, I'm thinking of you this morning. I know you get stronger each day from your heart surgery. You are an inspiration to all those we know and we love. We hold them. And as Charlie mentioned, that we do on our website, we have a donate button, Tithe. And I'm going to do that first too. We do our finances every week. I'm going to ask that we do a prayer of tithes and offerings. And if someone can pass this around and bring it back. It takes a fair amount to keep our church going. It takes physical effort, time, and it takes finances. But we also reach out to the community, and we help that in the community. We try and make our world a better place because we only live half a life unless we are carrying others. So I'm going to ask each of you to place your right hand over your heart and repeat the prayer of tithes and offerings. Divine love adds me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. So it is. Amen. Thanks, Tracy. Each week, I'm humbled to get to talk to everyone. And each week, I try and find something that strikes a chord with each of you and strikes a chord with me as well. Sometimes it's more spiritual, sometimes it's metaphysical, sometimes it's directly from the Bible. Today is from the news. It's the Thai boys soccer team rescue. According to the cave divers interviewed for the documentary, The Rescue, a lack of confidence pushes cave divers. They're not good at team sports. They don't play well with others. They like isolation, and they like the challenge to overcome. They don't like confrontation. They're not sociable. They feel like they were the kids who were picked on. Each one said they felt that they were left out and that they were different. Some said they felt emotionally challenged. But somehow in the caves, all this goes away and they're in control. For them, it's quiet and peaceful. There is safety in this type of isolation. The town is called Mae Se, Thailand. They make their money from rice, from tourism, from scenery. They make their money in the open market area where people come from the border crossing into Miramar. And one of the views that people come from is the mountain skyline. It resembles a lady laying down, a pregnant woman. She's considered the lady of the mountain, and it's her spirit, they say, that guards the mountain for the soul of her lover and herself. And below the mountain is a series of caves, which people come from all over the world. And these caves are closed off from July to late October because the monsoons come. And this mountain is sandstone, and water permeates it. Sandstone is so porous that these caves can become impossible to pass in a matter of minutes when the rains come. A month before the monsoons were set to hit, 12 boys and their coach from the local soccer team enter the caves for a quick exploration before going to one of the players' homes for his birthday. His mom was waiting at home with friends and family and a SpongeBob cake. And the sky opened up unexpectedly. The monsoon rains came a month early. Now, I tell you this story because it's about the gifts that people have, things that are unique to each one of us. Some things we have in common, but some things are our special gifts. And it's how these gifts weave the fabric of hope and faith until each person was brought out safely. The first gift was their coach. He had the ability to keep the boys calm as the water chased up their heels, blocking their entrance, and they had to run deeper into the caves. The boys didn't make it to the party that day, and they quickly learned that they had gone into the caves because of bicycles lined up at the entrance in front of the statue of the lady guarding the cave. Day 2, they called in the Thai Navy SEALs because already there was little else that anyone could do. In the area was a British man named Vern Unsworth, known locally as the crazy foreign caver. He's an explorer, and he works for the Department of Tourism, and his gift is that sometime prior to this, he decided to go in and map the cave to the best of his ability. He knew every area of the cave and every possible place that these kids might find safety. The first rescue team was about 17 men, all trained SEALs, but quickly they realized that cave diving was different. They were struggling to get 200 meters, less than a tenth of the way to where the kids would eventually be found. This guy Vern wrote 10 names on a piece of paper. Said, these are the names of the men that you need. And the list was ignored. Rick Stanton, a retired firefighter, a guy named John Volithan, an IT consultant, both from Britain. They were the first two cave divers to go. They both have a fascination with underwater caves. They're drawn to an activity that most people would run from. They know the risks and have saved people before. The people that they've saved before, though, they were other cave divers, people who understood the risk. They understood breath control under stress. This ability to control breath under stress like this is what separates the cave diver from the SEALs. Unless you're trained in this atmosphere, you quickly breathe your own air when underwater. Your mind thinks it's breathing normally, but it's not. Your mind is in survival mode, and you consume air rapidly. It takes your mind a long time to accept the fact that this condition of being underwater, breathing from a bottle, is normal. And even when you've been diving for years, when you find yourself in a very foreign and very scary situation, even the best in the world consume air way too fast. Say in a place like an underwater cave where the currents come at you from all directions like rivers, where visibility is limited. These two guys, Rick and John, are considered the best in the world. They look frail, they look tired. But what the world sees as a foreign environment, they see as safe and normal. And we all breathe comfortably when we feel safe and normal. These two men were on that list of the 10 names. And those names are being ignored. The Navy SEALs bring in more SEALs. This guy, Rick, had met a lady a couple weeks before and spent the past 2 weeks with her in England. Her name was Amp Bagnoan. She was from a small village in Thailand, this village, you might say. She had spent the 2 weeks with Rick learning to kayak and learning about his hobbies, cave diving. She thought he was crazy, but they fell in love. And then she returned home. And that day the news broke. A young boys' soccer team was trapped in an underwater cave in her hometown. The next gift is use who you know. She called Rick, and they knew that he was the one, but he knew he needed more, so he called his friend John. Again, use who you know. They knew Vern. They called Vern, the man who had mapped the caves, and said they were coming. By the time they arrived, the whole world had shown up. This was day 5 for the kids. Chaos is what they saw. Pumps going in, lights, wires, electricity, phone, power for uplinks. Thousands of people descended upon this area. Food tents, fresh water tents, places to go to the bathroom. The town finding places for the world to sleep. The authorities had turned over the rescue mission to the Navy SEALs. And those SEALs said that these 2 old men were not allowed in the cave. So what do? They wake up the next day from a shared bed. Accommodations are so tight, they're sleeping in the same double bed, toe to tail, they called it. But they don their gear and they enter the water, which was flowing like a river. Their only guide was the ropes that were set up when the cave was mapped. They surface in the 3rd chamber and they hear voices, help. They found 4 people, but they weren't the team. These 4 were Thailand groundwater specialists who got trapped in this chamber trying to pump water from the cave. They were flooded in, and in the chaos, nobody knew that they were missing. Water was rushing in so quickly that they knew they had to dive these 4 men out immediately. They gave them spare regulators to breathe on and brought the men out. These 4 men, 4 adults who had been trained, struggled at times and panicked at times on the way out, seeking air pockets, letting go of their regulators in panic to dive up. These 4 men who had been trained had to be wrestled out almost the whole way. How are they going to dive 13 people out, 12 of who are untrained children? They tucked that information away. The one constant thing that was going on in the area was prayer. The Thai people believed in something bigger. Something else was working here, because they knew hope came from spirit, and they prayed and worshiped. In times like this, you rely on what you know. We pray in the easy times, and when the tide turns against us, praying becomes easy, it's comfortable and familiar. Day 7, the water is rising 6 inches per hour. More pumps are brought in, more power to run the pumps, more food, and more accommodations needed. SEALs were gathering air tanks and more equipment. The Royal Army dug trenches to pump, so the pumped out water would have a runoff place. Doctors were on the ready, treating anything that occurred on site. Civilians using buckets. Planes bringing in special drilling tools. Retired SEAL named Saman re-enlisted to help find the kids. He knew he was one of the best trained SEALs in Thailand. American pararescue workers, trained in all sorts of missions, flew in from Japan to help. Their commander, Master Sergeant Derek Anderson, had met Rick and John when he got there. And after speaking with them, knew that they were the ones to do it. Because Derek had swam into the cave up to Chamber 3 and realized his limitations. Using what you know also means knowing your limitations. A man named Thamet Natasiri was a groundwater expert. He decided to volunteer because his specialty was how water flows through sandstone. He doesn't ask permission or check in. He decides to use what he knows. He goes up to the mountain, and what he knows is that water settles in sandstone until it creates puddles. And those puddles turn into pockets that bore into the cave. He knows that more water enters the cave through these openings than the main openings that everyone thinks it's flowing into. He quickly teaches the locals how to identify those openings. Every shovel, every spare hose, bamboo, every piece of plastic is used to move water. Plastic laid over the openings to block them, sandbags to create rivers, and the water has to go somewhere. The only place to divert it is to the rice fields. If they flood, the year's crop is lost. Every person who owned property said flooding. Truck-sized pumps were brought in. The prime minister oversaw everything, but he let the mayor be the voice who relayed information to the world, because his gift was the ability to convey hope and calm to the world, to the community, and to the families. The families of the kids, what they knew was to stay together. They knew their kids were together, so they would do the same. Do what you know. Day 8. Rick and John meet another cave diver from America who had tried to go in. He turned back because it was a suicide mission. They seemed to agree. Most of the rescue workers began to realize this was probably a recovery mission. Rick and John thought maybe it's time to go back to England. But the Navy SEALs kept laying line. And Rick and John kept seeing the parents praying at the bicycles. Decided they had to keep trying. A mystic monk called Krupa Bunchum came in. He was believed to be related to the lady in the cave. He came in and he blessed the mission. And then he said, the kids are alive. They will be rescued. But two unexpected people will lose their lives. The day he arrived, the rain stopped. Days 9 and 10, Rick and John debate, and they decide to give it another go. They take 2 bags of rope so they can go beyond the existing rope that was mapped out. They swam for 2 hours. Chamber 3 had dried enough that they could actually walk to Chamber 3. The Navy SEALs had set up a temporary base there. Then they swam 2,000 meters past Chamber 3. Each time they were able to surface, they used their sense of smell to try to detect the kids. They expected not to find the kids alive. They came to what's called Pattaya Beach, the only spot they knew that the kids could survive. When they surfaced, the cave smelled like a cave, and there was not enough oxygen to support anyone for a couple days. They were at almost the end of their air safe margin. They were almost at a rope. But they decided not to turn back. They'd gone this far, they will go to the end of their rope. They surfaced in the next chamber and smelled. They smelled pungent decay. They smell what they believe is decomposing bodies. And then a light shines at them. Hello, thank you. That was the first words they heard. The second words he heard was Rick telling himself, believe this. It had been 10 days since they went into the cave. 10 days, the world wondering. 10 days of these kids staring at blackness, not knowing what would happen to them. Use what you know. The coach knew his kids. He knew the power of meditation. He knew the power of spirit. He taught the kids how to be calm, how to meditate, to use less oxygen, to burn less calories, to survive 10 days without food. Rick and John checked to see if the kids were okay, and they were, and they promised to come back. Then that little information they had tucked away about diving the 4 trained men struck their mind. They took videos of the kids, and then they thought they may be the last people to see them alive, and they swam out. At Chamber 3, the Navy SEAL base, is when the world learned that the boys are alive. From that little base area transmitted to the world around the globe in an instant, the world was connected by one story of hope and love and faith. The mom, whose boy had missed his birthday, pulled the SpongeBob out of the freezer to take a picture so she could send it to her son to let him know that he still had a party to make. Because a mother knows love, a mother knows faith. The Thai SEALs thanked them and said they would take over now. They would be used as advisors from here on out. The 2 men welcomed the relief from the stress. The Navy stepping in with all the resources that they could muster. But still in their mind was how. 1,000 men seemed like hope. But still, without control of breath, was it really hope? Saman and the other Thai SEALs started working on plans. 7 SEALs went in to stay with the kids. They brought food, or to meet the kids. They brought food and foiled blankets. 2 were expected to stay. They consumed so much air that 4 had to stay because they were now stranded with the kids. Many options were discussed, from trying to drill in to keeping boys alive in the caves during the monsoon season, but no option seemed viable. The Americans took Rick and John aside and asked them what they thought. Remembering diving out the four men, they said, "We don't think it can be done. We think it's impossible." And that commander, Rick Anderson, said, "Well, what does the impossible look like?" For them, it looked like sedation. Maybe if the boys were sedated, they could not fight or panic. Maybe they could get at least one out alive. Use who you know. They reached out to another cave diver in Australia, a man named Richard Harris, who's an experienced cave diver, who's also an anesthesiologist. He wanted to keep his distance from that idea. Said it was something that would never work and it's never been done. Immediately thought of 1,000 ways that the kids would die during this process, but it rolled around in everyone's head. In the meantime, Rick and John decided to dive back to the kids to bring more food. And they were asked to bring bracelets that were blessed by the monk. Rick said no. "I don't believe in that." And he wasn't going to carry the extra weight. Everyone around him said, "You don't have to believe, the kids do." Half this battle was giving the kids faith. They dove into bracelets. Every kid eagerly took one. When you have nothing left, you use your faith. Inside, they realized the oxygen level had now dropped below safety margins. Any option of keeping the kids in the caves were now gone. Two of the men who had left the chamber some time ago resurfaced in chamber 3. One was the man Samen. He had gone in with this other man to bring wetsuits in an attempt to teach these kids how to swim themselves out. He ran out of air, and his buddy brought his body back. Sometimes all you know is not enough. The monk's first prediction of people dying came true. From that point on, the Navy decided it would no longer go past Chamber 3. They would not pass, they could not do anything more. The man Samam knew he was a hero no matter what the cost. Derek Anderson, the American, took control of the operation under the authority of the Thai government. What does the impossible look like? The impossible looks like 10 middle-aged men whose hobby is controlling their breath in an area the rest of the world would never go. It had to be us, Rick had said. Harry said he would fly out, but sedation was off the table. Rick told him to come because he had one thought in his mind: see the kids and then tell them no. The next morning, we talked about what the impossible looked like. It was sedation. Derek Anderson, the American, thought it was crazy, but it was the only idea, and he had to have faith and trust in that he got an answer to his question. But who would do it? The 10 from that list that nobody wanted to look at. They called all 10, and they all came, each one as fast as they could, from everywhere. An IT worker, a contractor, a meteorologist, electrician, a mechanic, a veterinarian, and the Australian anesthesiologist. Richard Harris had told his dad what he was doing when he left. His father, living in a nursing home at this point, never understood his obsession with cave diving until this moment. Richard Harris and these men landed, and they were greeted by the world. Richard took off. He wasted no time. He swam out to the boys. What he saw was tall boys, weakened in body but strong in spirit. It was no longer saying no to the impossible. He decided to use what he knew to make the impossible possible. He thought of Xanax and ketamine to be given every 30 minutes, and then the boys could be brought out one by one. They needed masks that were pressurized to keep water from seeping in so they wouldn't drown. The team was put in place. Joining them were another group of divers who just happened to be in the area who had some cave experience. They would be in various chambers to offer assistance. Everyone was on board, except for the Thai government. They were not about to take a risk of a single kid dying in a crazy plan. Only 4 of those masks could be found in time, and the time frame needed. Air supply in the caves was dwindling. The monsoons were threatening. The government of Thai had taken control of the narrative. The world did not know about the plan. The world did not know about the oxygen in the cave. The world did not know the extent, the immediate threat of the monsoons. They finally told the prime minister, the only guarantee is this: if we don't try, they will all die. Another day went by, but that day allowed for practice and allowed the Thai government to see that these guys kind of had an idea of what they were thinking. Every spare person was removed from the cave entrance. Tarps went up to shield the entrance from view, and permission was given for a day because of those 4 masks. Richard Harris thought, how did it come to this? How did it come to pass that this plan rested on his shoulders? This is what his father had taught him. His father had been a surgeon. He taught him that every person matters. And his father was generous with that gift. Came down to this team, to those who had waited at entrance, to the medical personnel that transport the team, to a man somewhere up above, teaching the locals how to stop the water from seeping into the cave. And it came down to faith. The drugs were prepared, and the men taught how to inject them. The parents were gathered together and praying, and then the 10 went in, and the support people went in, and then the body bags went in. 9 chambers to each of the kids. The kids had already planned who would go and in what order. The kids who lived furthest away would go first, so on their way home, they could tell everyone that they were all okay. They had not grasped the concept that the world was outside their door waiting to see them. Xanax was given to the first kid, and then they added atropine, which stops saliva so the kids won't drown in their own saliva. And then the injection of ketamine. The mask was secured, and their hands zip tied behind their back. And the first kid was let out. This is a one-way trip, Richard Harris had told them. No matter what happens, alive or dead, keep moving through the chambers. 1 more was let out, then another, then the 4th. Everything exactly as they were told. The second child had stopped breathing. Use what you know. Do as you were taught. Check the airflow. Remove the mask when you're in the next chamber. Allow the boy to breathe naturally. Then move forward. The humming of the pumps could be heard in chamber 3 as they approached chamber 3. Kid number 1 was alive and breathing. That's what the world heard. 200 people were there to help shuttle that kid out. And one by one, each of the 4 came out, one by one into an ambulance, one by one to the hospital. Day 1 was complete. These 10 men could breathe for the night. That was 16 days since the kids had entered the cave. In the cave, the remaining people were 8 kids, 4 SEALs, and a coach. The coach had him pray and meditate. The next day, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and eighth child brought out 8 for 8. One more night to breathe. In the middle of the night, the skies opened up. A main pump broke. There's only today, they thought. Day 18, everything was flooding. The discussion went around, should they continue? Some thinking maybe not. The 10 just got up, walked to the cave. Decision made. Dive 5 people out and get the remaining SEALs out. The nerves were high. Men were crying going in. And then you rely on what you know. The first boy of the day is out. One diver could exhale and cry with the rest of the world. The next boy was out, and then the coach. And the third boy did not come out. And the fourth boy, his mask did not fit. They had to improvise and use a different spare type of mask. It's pink emergency mask. And the man bringing out the third boy lost the guideline, couldn't find it. Finally, his hand found a cable, and he followed the cable. And he resurfaced in the next chamber, expecting to find rescue workers. He found nobody. He was lost. He did not know what chamber he was in. Then a light rose from the water. It was the man guiding the final child out. They realized when he grabbed the cable, he was facing the other way, and he went back to chamber 4 instead of chamber 3. The fourth guy knew that the anesthesiologist, Richard Harris, was following him behind. So he told the other guy to stay put until he gets here. And then he led child 3 or child 4 out to safety. Richard Harris surfaced, saw that this guy's nerves were shot, asked him, would it be okay if I took the kid? He agreed. Come out when you feel okay. And the final child made it out. With a bottle of Jack Daniels passed around as people celebrated. And then someone cried out. Another pump had broke. The rain was coming down faster. The pump that broke was now pumping water in to the chambers. 4 men still trying to get out. There was an order given to evacuate all the caves immediately of everyone. At that moment, those 4 men surfaced. Mission accomplished. They came and got what they came for, and the cave could go back to doing what the cave does. The monk had predicted that all the boys and everyone would be safe, except 2 would die. Richard Harris called his wife to tell her that everyone was out. And she told him his father had died. All predictions came true. He had that roll around in his head, should he fly back? But then he remembered everything his father had taught him. You care about others. So he stayed with his team, stayed with those 9 boys. So what did it take to give these kids back to their parents, their friends, their community? It took using the gifts that everybody has. It took these 10 men using skills that nobody wants. It took a sandstone water expert knowing his trade and knowing enough not to ask permission, to not get bogged down in red tape. It took people who would give up their bed for another. It took people whose best skill was to cook or to set up booths to feed the world. It took love from the world. It took a person to donate a shovel here, a rope here, a hose, a bamboo shoot, anything to divert the water. It took people willing to give up their livelihood, their year's pay to save these kids. It took a coach to teach the kids how to breathe and to meditate and to have faith. It took the families to have faith. It took this monk to represent faith and convince people that faith mattered. It took these kids to show the world what hope is like and what a small community of love is to the rest of the world. It took a Navy SEAL to show that no cost is too great. It took people donating and setting up tents and tarps, anything to help others stay dry. It took electricians and cameramen. Any gift, any possible thing that you have, no matter how big or small, came into play here. It took a lady to use what she knew to call a friend that she had just met. And they're still together. And it took an anesthesiologist to remember what his father taught him. Everybody matters. We each come with gifts, skills, and wisdoms in our lives. Some are very similar, some are very unique, some are big, some are small. But it's these gifts that we get to fall back on first. Use what you know, no matter how big or small, but be consistent, because you never know the impact your gifts may have on the life of others. I would like to close this with the prayer of protection, because I just think it's fitting for this. If you guys could join me. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed. Amen. Kevin, if you could play us out, I would love that. Thank you.